Look, I'm glad that we've got some concessions in the debt ceiling deal. I'm glad. I am. The people who wanted us to fold immediately would have gotten none, right? We would have gotten none. There's no concessions, but we could have gotten more. We could have gotten more in these concessions had it not been for these stupid neocons who care more about these foreign wars and unlimited cash for General Milley's military than they care about America. I'm so sick of the neocons. If you're mad about the debt ceiling deal, blame the neocons. It's the neocons who are holding up this entire deal and are holding this deal hostage. They refuse to budge on any cuts to our woke military. We need to cut. We need to stop spending. We need to stop sending money over to countries that hate us. We could have had a much better deal if we had a GOP that was willing to limit the money we send over to countries that hate us. That's my take here on the debt ceiling and the concessions that are being talked about, being made, negotiations. Now, Joe Biden, this is what the first story is out of the gate here on the Morning Buzz, folks. And then I've got a couple of more that I've got to talk about in the 6 o'clock hour. I hope you all had a great Memorial Day. I spent some much needed time with my family. I went out to Kickapoo Creek. It's a state park, probably, and I know it's going to be a hot take, the best state park I've ever been to. It's clean. I don't know who is in charge of keeping it up, but they do a great job out there. It's in Lincoln, Illinois, and they've got beautiful creeks. They've got beautiful waterways, kayaking, things like that, and I really enjoyed my time out at Kickapoo Creek. Spent some much-needed time outdoors. I was in the parade yesterday, waving to people. It was a lot of fun. That went all the way from Grossinger Motors Arena all the way down into Miller Park, where they had a nice ceremony. So it was great to see people out there. There were a lot of people at that Memorial Day parade. A lot of people. It was just packed. And it was warm. And it was impossible to get breakfast anywhere yesterday. Out of all the Bloomington normal restaurants, you'd think that, it'll be easy. We can go get breakfast anywhere. No, we were waiting and waiting and waiting to get into places. A lot of people were out and about yesterday. Joe Biden, he was on vacation over the weekend. Which brings me to this story. He was back in the White House very briefly, folks, after his vacation at Camp David over the weekend before he headed back out to his Wilmington home for the rest of the Memorial Day vacation. So the guy gets like 2 vacations. He's vacationing at Camp David, then he comes back briefly for the White House, then he goes back home. Before he took off in the helicopter, though, to go hang out in his Delaware home, he took time to, of course, mock reporters, because that's what he does best. And these reporters were propagandists, right? A lot of them. And they were just asking questions about this debt negotiation deal, the debt ceiling. It's a big question as to whether it's going to pass, with people on both the right and the left are unhappy about it. The left, the uber left, they're upset because there's some cuts, not really to the budget or hey, let's not spend so much. Let's cut here. Let's cut here. And they're not very happy about the cuts that have been made. And then people on the right aren't happy. The people like Matt Gaetz, the Freedom Caucus, we're not happy because we could be cutting more. And we need to stop spending our money over in Ukraine. We need to start having peace talks. Joe Biden needs to start having peace talks, and he won't. And to be frank with you, it's the neocons who don't want the peace talks. And they don't want to stop spending money in Ukraine because they're making all kinds of cash and lining their pockets because we're fighting this proxy war with Russia right now in Ukraine. But anyway, Joe Biden dismissed any budget questions from the reporters, and then he totally mocked them, saying that they were, quote, not living in the real world. All right, Joe, we're going to get to his comments here next. Did you see this out of the New York Times? And the New York Times should not be taken seriously at all. Just like the Washington Compost, NBC, CNN, any alphabet news, just don't take them seriously because they write up things like this. The New York Times, Did they just say the quiet part out loud? I guess they did. This is the question that many are left wondering on social media this morning after this paper was published on Saturday, after this movie was released. What movie am I talking about? The Disney live-action remake of Little Mermaid. Now, this has been criticized by people because it's already gone really progressive, and it's not that she's a black actress, okay? So before you start saying, you're racist, how could you say this? Look, it's the virtue signaling, okay? Little Mermaid is traditionally played by a red-headed mermaid. Like, it's an iconic thing. The whole purpose of these live-action Disney films are to create some sort of nostalgia for, the people who used to watch them. A live-action take is kind of more targeted towards maybe an adult or maybe a teenager, who grew up on these films, somebody my age, where it's a live action film and you can go in and it'll be a nostalgia factor for you. You go in and watch this remake of The Little Mermaid. There's no nostalgia because it's just brand new and she's a black actress. And it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you're trying to go for the nostalgia factor because you don't get it. So that's not what I'm talking about here. And put all of that aside. The virtue signaling, blah, blah, blah. And they come out with this paper today. The New York Times does. And they're upset because it lacked, quote, kinky content. Did they say the quiet part out loud, folks? Because they're saying that they're upset about the children's movie. Disney movie, this live action. I mean, adults, they watch it, they take the kids out to it, me, right? It's supposed to be kid friendly. You should be able to take your kids to Disney live action remakes. If not, then you need to slap a rated R film, rated R onto there. But Little Mermaid, this guy in the New York Times is saying that it was not kinky enough for him, and it didn't go far enough. So I think they said the quiet part out loud here, folks. Later, NBC talking about Alphabet News in the mainstream. Sorry. Sometimes I just get nauseous when I talk about the mainstream news. I just still can't believe there's people out there that consume this stuff. But here it is. NBC saying that you are celebrating the backing of Bud Light and others into a corner. And they're not exactly wrong on this. I will say that. They're saying that conservatives are celebrating the fact that Bud Light stock is down. I thought this was so funny over Memorial Day weekend. I don't know if any of y'all know what Burcott's is. I haven't seen one around Bloomington Normal. Maybe they're more popular up north. Give me a text here on the Morning Buzz line, 309-451-9299. Have you ever been in a Burcott's before? Maybe it's just more of an up north thing and not central Illinois thing. But anyway, I was in Burcott's over the weekend getting some stuff for Memorial Day. I think we had to get hamburger buns and things like that. Inflation is crazy, by the way. Ketchup is up like insane amount. Ketchup up 27.9% inflation. So the prices there are up 27.9% for ketchup in comparison to last year. I'm going to get to that. Some Memorial Day staples have been really rocked by inflation. I was in the grocery store and I was like, gosh, this is wild. We were getting some hamburger buns. So anyway, I was in Burcott's and I walked by the coolers for the Bud Light and I was just kind of curious. I was like, okay, how much is Bud Light nowadays? Are they putting in, or is it on sale? So it turns out, I guess with some sort of rebate, you could get a case of 24, a pack of 24 Bud Lights for 99 cents. If you just like go to their website and fill out a form or something, then you could get the pack of 24 for 99 cents. That's where they're at, folks. They're like, please just come to our website, give us your name, and we'll give you this beer for free. I mean, practically, we're just going to give it to you for 99 cents. They are literally trying to get it off the shelves. Because it's embarrassing. Anyway, so NBC, they come out, and I've got to get to this hour. Because they're not exactly wrong on this. I'm celebrating. When I saw that, I almost did a fist bump into the air, jumped up and down, started clapping in the grocery store because I was so excited that they are failing. Yes, I know that sounds harsh, but I am so excited that they are failing. I don't take NBC seriously, but they're not necessarily wrong on this. Conservative activists and conservatives have taken some joy in seeing Bud Light stock crater by billions of dollars following this brand's celebration of Dylan Mulvaney and his 365 days of girlhood, normalizing the bulge, right? This is Dylan Mulvaney, the trans TikToker. And I take some satisfaction in seeing them, their stock crater, seeing their sales crater. And now we're watching it, Target take a hit, and that's satisfying too. Also, Kohl's taking a hit because they've got little onesies. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I brought this story to you. I knew that this was going to happen because I was in Kohl's the other day. I walked right out. I didn't buy anything. And then it's weird. They've got it on rolly carts, and I've never seen that before, really, in Kohl's, to this degree. There's like rolly carts in the local Kohl's over here off of Veterans by Eastland Mall. It's almost as if they've got them on wheels, so that way if something bad were to happen, they can just wheel it out, or if they have too much backlash, they can just wheel the gay onesies out, which is just so sick. I'm going to get to this because there's more people failing. There's more pushback, and I'm going to break down the numbers on this because they say that, oh, yeah, I mean, there's a big consumer base in the gay community. They make up 7.1% of the population, okay? And when you see things like that, I really question your numbers. But I'm going to dig into the NBC article because they're saying that the gay community is a big consumer base and, like, they're the ones with the purchasing power. That's why Kohl's, Target, Bud Light, they're doing these marketing deals where they try to be inclusive because they're a big part of the consumer base. And it's just like, I don't think so. I really don't think so. So I'm going to come back because we got to talk about Joe Biden and how he was mocking reporters over the weekend. And if you're listening right now, you can watch me in studio on Facebook Live. I'm also back on YouTube. Just type in Cat Peterson or Conservative Cat. That's my YouTube channel. You guys can go to the YouTube channel, check it out. Go to Facebook, type in Cities 92.9. We are online. So check it out. I'm on Facebook Live. I've got exclusive content for you on the other side of this break. But I'll be back coming up in just about 10 minutes. Hey, if you're watching right now, please go ahead and throw in the comments that you're watching. Give it a like. We were live on Rumble, and I don't think that we're going to be live on Rumble anymore. Rumble. Okay, so I got a lot of things to talk about. First things first, I do want to talk about Old Navy because I do foresee this happening in Illinois because of crime. I mean, over the weekend for Memorial Day, did you know that there were these peacekeepers, that Governor J.B. Pritzker signed off on in order to keep the peace in Chicago? This is a war. Literally, the streets are bloody. And I saw something from, I think it was Crystal Abel or something, where people are saying, I'd have to pull up the post. People say that Republicans make this up. People say that Republicans make up the crime because they want a talking point to win them elections. No. Republicans bring it up because that's a winning issue for them, and that's how politics are played, right? If Republicans fix the crime, of course they're going to talk about crime because that's an issue that they are known to fix and can fix. So Old Navy joining this huge list of stores in downtown San Francisco. There are stores closing up shop due to the rising crime happening in downtown San Francisco. And what this one employee says at this Old Navy really shook me to my core. I mean, to think that there are actual stores closing in the United States due to crime, that should just really let that sink in. So an Old Navy employee is speaking out about the out-of-control crime in downtown San Francisco that has resulted in the company, Old Navy, making its recent decision to permanently shutter the store location on Market Street following the footsteps of Nordstrom, which is like I guess like a clothes store, Whole Foods, T-Mobile, and a whole list of other businesses. In an interview with CBS News, the worker detailed the rampant shoplifting and violence towards staff that employees were forced to deal with on a daily basis. So there's a lot of things coming out now about the shoplifting, about the crime, and about how workers are being treated when it comes to addressing these people about crime. You can't even address the people who are shoplifting because you'll be called bigoted, or you'll be called racist, or you'll be called inherently or like your white supremacy, right? This is where we're at in America. We have stores closing in San Francisco every other week, it seems, and I don't think a whole lot of people are talking about it. That's of a great concern. I think we should be talking more about the rampant crime happening in places like San Francisco, like Chicago. If you're watching right now, please give this video a like. We're going to be back, and I'm going to be talking about Joe Biden, because Joe Biden, he was, of course, on vacation all weekend, and he did make a stop at the White House, probably had to go pick up his Depends or something for his second vacation. So he was in Camp David on vacation, came back briefly to the White House before he got on the helicopter, took some time to mock some reporters. He was asked a few things about the debt ceiling and the concessions that have been made, the negotiations going on, and if he thinks it's going to get passed. So he won't answer about that, and essentially. And he pretty much admits to this reporter how fragile he thinks this deal is. And then he was also asked about the pardoning. So there's been talks now. Peter Doocy was talking about Governor Ron DeSantis, and if he were to become president, if he could pardon President Donald Trump if he was convicted of some sort of felony. If he were to become president. Now, DeSantis said that he would look into people who are, quote, victims of this weaponization and political targeting that is Donald Trump, and he will be aggressive at issuing pardons. You know who really needs a fair shake? That's Jacob Chansley. People stopped talking about him. Now, you might know him as the QAnon shaman, the guy who wore the horns on January 6th. So there's video footage, and Tucker Carlson released all of this, and shortly after releasing all of this was ousted by Fox News. Not saying that's the reason, but I am saying it's kind of interesting how he was ousted shortly after revealing all of this January 6th footage. Jacob Chansley, just 2 years, spent 2 years in prison. Imprisoned. He was jailed. For what? Trespassing. They didn't have him on anything else. They just had him on trespassing, and they shackled him, and they kept him in jail for trespassing, but then was let go. Why? Because he wasn't trespassing. He was given a tour by Capitol Police. He was being shown around the Capitol by Capitol Police that day. It was all political theater. Now, like I said, Peter Doocy asked Joe Biden about Ron DeSantis possibly pardoning these people, possibly pardoning Donald Trump, and Joe Biden's answer was pretty funny. I'll be back. They said the quiet part out loud, folks. That's the New York Times. Yes, they were upset. They're so mad that The Little Mermaid didn't go far enough. Yes, the New York Times, they're saying this. They're saying that the remake, the live-action remake, Disney's The Little Mermaid, they were saying that it wasn't kinky enough. What? I mean, you're supposed to be taking... So really what I think these Disney live-action remakes are supposed to be about, and would make sense, right, is that this is supposed to provide some nostalgia for the parents. People like me, I grew up on Little Mermaid. I grew up on a lot of these Disney movies that are being remade now, The Lion King. You should be able to take your kids to it and relive all of this nostalgia and go through that with your kid. And it should be something that's, you know, a nice experience. It should be something family friendly. Now, it should be something that I also, as an adult, can enjoy. But it having kinky content, I don't think that that's supposed to be the goal of these Disney live action remakes. But according to this New York Times reporter, let's just call him that, I guess. I'm going to refrain from calling him groomer. Actually, no, I won't. This New York Times groomer said the quiet part out loud, and he's mad. He's big mad that this children's movie lacked kinky content. Yes, he wrote this in an article. So I'm going to get to that here coming up in just a little bit. You can see me in the studio. I'm live in the studio on Facebook, YouTube. You can join me on Twitter. We're everywhere. We're on Rumble. So be sure to see me in the studio. I do want to play this for you. This is Joe Biden. He was asked some questions. He made a trip to the White House when he made a trip when he was on his vacation, right? He was on vacation. He went to Camp David. Then he came back to the White House. I think he might have forgotten something, maybe his nightcap or like his so something he uses at night, maybe some pills or something. He forgot something at the White House. So he stopped by the White House very briefly before he went back to his Delaware home for the rest of his vacation. And he was asked some questions about the debt ceiling and the negotiations happening there. And I do want to share this with you. This is Joe Biden being asked some questions by a reporter on if this is going to get passed and done before June 5th. And here's the reporter and Joe Biden and their exchange. Here we go. So I want to unpack that here for us. Joe Biden having this exchange with the reporter. There was a reporter who shouted out, hey, who got the better deal? Republicans, Democrats? Definitely it was the Democrats. That's how it goes. I'm upset about the deal. I think that it's good. I am glad that we got some concessions. We made some cuts. You can blame the neocons for this deal not being as good as it should be. The neocon Republicans who are all about sending money over to countries that hate us. I'll get to that here in a second. But Joe Biden, he was asked by a reporter who got the better shake out of this deal with this debt ceiling. And what's on the table, of course, is should the debt ceiling be raised? And we were talking about cuts. We were talking about raising the debt ceiling, blah, blah, blah. There was talks about going into default. So Joe Biden, he says, it's a bipartisan deal. Then the reporter asks, okay, will this get done by June 5th? Or is there going to be a vote on these negotiations by June 5th? And then Joe Biden says, oh, yes. And she goes, no question. And he like smiles, does his little Joe Biden thing. And he goes, you guys don't live in the real world. He's snippy. Isn't he a little snippy? He's a little snipper snapper. Ooh, Joe. He goes, there's no question. There's no reason why it shouldn't get done by June 5th. I'm confident we'll get a vote in both houses, and we'll see. So he also mocked their understanding of the negotiations and said that it would be foolish to talk about it before the vote was taken. So he won't talk about what was going on in the negotiations and things like that. And they asked him if he would tell them what went on in the negotiations, and he said, I'm not going to tell you. And then he says, it would be absurd to cast the deal as a win now. So he wouldn't say if he thought that, it was a win for both sides or anything like that. And he says some House progressives have ripped it, saying it would lock in cuts pushed by Republicans. So the House progressives, I'm sure like an AOC type, they're probably upset with the cuts that did get through in these negotiations. And then he says this, how about if this was 100% deal for the Democrats? You think that'd help me get it passed? Come on. So he expanded and he said, one of the things that I hear some of you saying is, why doesn't Joe Biden say what a good deal it is? So he won't come out and say that this is a good deal and that he'll say it's bipartisan, but he won't say anything more about it. Why wouldn't Joe Biden say that what a good deal it is before the vote? You know, saying that he approves it or that he's for this, for the negotiations that they have come up with. You think that's going to help me get it passed? This is what Joe Biden says. He says, no, that's why you guys don't bargain very well anyway. So this is an exchange that shows that he's admitting he knows this deal is fragile. He knows that this is fragile and that anything he says, these reporters could take it and shake it, could shake it. And that's also, that's also so Joe Biden. He won't say anything. He's very fragile himself. Okay, this deal is fragile. It shows that this deal is very fragile and it shows that Joe Biden is fragile himself. And this is so Joe Biden. Whenever he's challenged, he has to attack or try to diminish people asking questions that are very straightforward. Like these ones that I just shared with you. You know, they're asking them if he agrees with this deal, if he likes this deal, and he won't even come out and say that he likes this deal. He's such a petty little human being. He really is. And most of these reporters just go along with it and they get treated like dirt and they don't call him out for his behavior. His behavior is terrible. He goes, you don't live in the real world. I'm glad we got some concessions. Like I said, in the debt ceiling deal, the people who wanted us to fold immediately would have gotten none. So we would have gotten none, but we could have gotten a lot more had it not been for the neocons who care more about these foreign wars and unlimited cash for General Milley's military than they care about America. I'm mad about the debt ceiling deal. If you're mad about it, I'm just saying right now, it's the neocons who were holding this hostage the entire time. They refused to budge on any cuts to our woke military. And we could have had a much better deal if we had a GOP that was willing to limit the money that we send to countries that hate us. All right. So that's my thoughts here on this debt ceiling. I'm glad that we got some concessions, but we could have gotten a lot more had it not been for these neocons and their desperate need to spend money and to send money to countries that hate us. I'm going to be back here. I do have to talk about one more thing that was questioned of Joe Biden. Governor Ron DeSantis, if he were to become president, which, guys, I don't think that that's even a remote Ron, irrelevant Ron. Okay, there's no way he's going to be president. According to the polling at this point, I don't think. But if he were to become president, he definitely has the leg up over Joe Biden if he were to become the nominee. But Ron DeSantis, he made some remarks regarding pardoning. And, Peter Doocy got into Joe Biden's face and said, hey, what do you think about Ron DeSantis giving President Donald Trump a pardon? And Joe Biden's answer is really funny. You got to come back on the other side to hear it. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey, thanks so much for joining me here on the live stream. Be sure to text me right now on the text line if you are watching, 309-451-9299. I do want to let y'all know about the Brandon Straka Walk Away movement. He's speaking at the Champaign Lincoln Dinner on June 3rd. Tickets are still available. Yes, we will be making announcements, Joanne, on the radio. I will be sure to announce that. Be sure to get your tickets. Brandon Straka, I've talked with him extensively before, specifically about January 6th. Gay man, he's gay, and he says that we need to start walking away from the progressive left because they are toxic people. And Brandon Strzok, he was there at January 6th. And we've talked, and one thing that I took away from talking with Brandon Strzok was that he was shackled, like literally had uh, cuffs on his wrists and on his feet for not even being where all the chaos was at. And I mean, it's detained. I mean, people were detained, and we talked about the people who were detained, arrested. I've had friends that were arrested. There have been a lot of people who were weaponized and had the government weaponized, and they're victims of the weaponization and political targeting. And yeah, I I suggest you go meet Brandon Strzok or try to meet him from the Walk Away campaign. It's a movement. It's calling on people in the LGBT community or LGB. Let's talk about this. Brandon Strzok also not a big fan of the TQs, of the LGBTQs. He's talked extensively about, how the gay community needs to walk away from these oppressive leftists, these Democrats who want to keep you down and want to make your sexuality about the rainbow handbags that they sell at Target. Okay, that's not at all a reflection of people who are actually gay and what they think of themselves, right? They don't boil their sexuality down to a rainbow handbag that you can buy at Target for $5. Okay, that's between them and God. I know a lot of gay people who have abandoned their sexuality and their sexual sin. This is what they've told me, and they pursue a life of being with Christ and doing as Christ does and being a Christian, and they have abandoned that lifestyle. I've talked to, and it's very hard for them. It's very hard for them to grapple with sexual sin. But yeah, Brandon Strzok, he talks about walking away from the progressive Democrats, and he's talking at the Champaign Lincoln dinner, and Joanne Nipmeyer, she's talking about the Champaign Lincoln dinner on June 3rd. Tickets are available, so you guys can go get your tickets. So I also wanted to talk about this. Yes, Kickapoo Creek. Where did you spend? If you're watching right now, send me where you spent your Memorial Day weekend in the comments. I'll read them on air. I spent some time at the Kickapoo Creek, and it's a great fishing spot. When I was a teenager, I grew up in Lincoln. It was where I felt peace from the way serenity and peace from the world. Yes, I absolutely love the Kickapoo Creek Park. It is just a place of peace, and they do a fantastic, probably one of the best. And I've been to a lot of state parks, folks, because I'm a big camper, love to kayak. This park, there's just something about it. I don't know. It's very peaceful. They do a great job. Now, I am going to be getting Joe Biden and how he deflected Peter Ducey's question about, hey, if Ron DeSantis becomes president and he pardons former President Donald Trump, what do you say about that, Joe? Like, what do you say about this possible pardon? And Ducey asks Joe Biden about a question about the weaponization and political targeting, and these victims of this weaponization of the government, and if there were to be aggressive pardons. And Ron DeSantis has said that he would do some aggressive pardoning. Now, I do say this, I don't think Ron DeSantis would be going after the government as hard as Donald Trump would be, obviously, because Donald Trump is in it for revenge. I would love to see a revenge Trump get in there and just gut the FBI, just dismantle it and fire everyone. You fired. I think that Donald Trump would do that, and I would hope he would. I hope that Ron DeSantis would if he were to be the nominee, which I don't think is a possibility. But Ron DeSantis has come out and said that he would issue very aggressive pardons for people who have been made targets for their political affiliation. And Joe Biden was asked about this, and this is a really funny answer, and I think it has a lot to do with Hunter, his answer. So let's get to it, shall we? Oh boy. I mean, I could have guessed it. Here we go. Sam Brinton. You know who Sam Brinton is? Well, let me remind you that he is the disgraced former Biden official. He dealt in the nuclear waste program. His name is Sam Brinton. And this doesn't shock me, but this is big news. It's been revealed now that he was a member of this drag nun group promoted by the LA Dodgers. Now, his drag name was Sister Ray Delo Active. Don't know what that really Dio Active. I don't know what it means. But he was a drag queen in this drag nuns group that it was very controversial. The LA Dodgers promoting, advertising a very special Pride Night on June 16th to feature this group. It's this drag nun group, and they dress up. It's really, really offensive. Catholic leaders have urged people to boycott the Dodgers, to boycott the MLB because of what they're doing. This is very offensive, and if you were to watch the video of their performance and you're a Christian, I highly recommend you don't. I look back on it now, and I've watched their performances, and I looked up this group and what they do. These drag nuns, they dress up in religious gear or like costumes. They dress up as priests and very salaciously dance around crosses, and it's gross. I've looked at the videos, and it's sad, and I wish I wouldn't have watched it. It's not good for your mental health as a Christian. I'm just going to say, or your spiritual health, to consume that kind of content. I watched it because I wanted to know what was going on, like how bad this group was. And I was like, okay, are people just really exaggerating this? No, it's as bad as it gets. And the LA Dodgers are featuring them in a very special Pride Night that is supposed to be happening on June 16th. Now, after some Catholic backlash, they canceled this June 16th Pride Night, but then they reinstated the night after they got backlash from the LGBTQ activists. And apparently they were more convincing than that of the Catholics, who their religion was really blasphemed. And this is, yeah, I mean, I'm not even a Catholic. This, if for any Christian out there, this is something that you do not want to watch. It's very offensive. I don't get offended very easily at all. You can say a lot of things about me, and I really just kind of brush it off. This was offensive, and I really wish I wouldn't have watched it. But it turns out that Sam Brinton, the guy who was in charge of Joe Biden's nuclear waste program, I mean, he was a bit top official in the Biden administration. He's no longer a top Biden official because, well, he was caught stealing luggage. Yes, this is the same guy. He's facing charges for theft of luggage from airports. He made headlines for being non-binary prior to being charged with multiple felonies. And I mean, there was a trial now, and he's going to be serving time in a men's prison. And he was fired after the news of these luggage thefts went public. So it turns out that he wasn't just a member of this drag nun group that's being promoted by the LA Dodgers right now. He was a leader of this drag nun group. I mean, he's not just a guy in it. He's the DC chapter president, and he holds leadership within this drag group. I don't know. I'm going to get to that story here coming up in just a little bit, but I do want to get to Joe Biden. Like I said, he was questioned by reporters, and he talked about the national debt ceiling. Really, he didn't say anything much about the national debt ceiling. He's very weak president. I mean, all feeble, dementia-riddled Joe Biden aside, he's very snippy with reporters. He mocked these reporters for asking very basic questions of him about the national debt ceiling. in these negotiations that are going on. And he was very snippy, didn't really want to answer the reporters because he's just a weak president. And anything he says will be used against him, right? But he can't hold his own. And that's why he acts the way he does. He's mean, he's rude. So he was asked some other questions, not about the debt ceiling, but about some things regarding Ron DeSantis, saying that he would be for issuing pardons very aggressively. So Peter Doocy asked Joe Biden some questions about Governor Ron DeSantis and if he were to become president, about pardoning President Donald Trump or other people if he had become president, Ron DeSantis had become president. And DeSantis said that he would look at people who are victims of the weaponization or political targeting, and he would be aggressively issuing pardons. One guy that really didn't get a fair shake at anything and should be, I mean, I'm given awards, medals, and a sincere apology from Joe Biden is Jacob Chansley. He's the QAnon shaman, and he was prisoned 2 years for trespassing. That's all they had him on. And this video came out. They let him go. The QAnon shaman, they had to let him go because he was being ushered around by Capitol Police. He wasn't trespassing. He was being invited into the Capitol by Capitol Police. So Jacob Chansley really didn't get a fair shake at things, and he was definitely a victim of political targeting. And Joe Biden, he was asked this by Peter Doocy. Okay, what do you think about that? Ron DeSantis giving former President Donald Trump some sort of pardon if he needs it, if he's convicted of something. One of the many witch hunts that they've got against him, and Biden being Biden does what he did what he always does here, and he doesn't answer the question. He laughs, does the creepy smile, and then deflects, and then he runs. So let's take a listen, and if you're watching on the Facebook Live, you can see Joe Biden physically running away from Peter Doocy. It's kind of funny. Here we go. So you can't really hear what he says there. He says something, I don't know, to the effect, I don't know. There's a lot of people out there saying that he said, I'll see you guys. Then he says, that's a great question. I don't know what his response there. Point is, he ran away and waved Peter Doocy off. He didn't really respond to Peter Doocy's question of, hey, what do you think about Ron DeSantis giving Donald Trump a pardon? First, he doesn't, of course, this is why he answered the way he did. He doesn't want to acknowledge the possibility that he wouldn't be president, although that's very, very likely. Polls have both DeSantis and Trump beating Joe Biden in a general. Trump actually more so in the polls by 7 points. I think the best poll that I've seen is Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden in a general by 7 points. I think Ron DeSantis was beating him by like 3 or 4, something like that. Further, Joe Biden answered the way he did because he doesn't want to be saying anything about pardons right now because of the situation and that of his son Hunter. So some believe Joe Biden is setting the stage to at some point possibly pardon the first son if he has to. And that wouldn't go over very well, okay? So he doesn't want to be talking about pardons at all right now because he's already deep in the doghouse with popularity. I think that he's like got 60% approval from Democrats. And I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr., who is running as a Democrat, has 20% approval or something like that in this room. He's deep in the doghouse when it comes to popularity. And if he pardons Hunter for crimes that he's committed, then that would make him even less popular with independents. I've got so much more to hit here on the Morning Buzz. One thing I do want to talk about is this New York Times story. Did they say the quiet part out loud? So, Disney live action remake of The Little Mermaid. There's this guy in the New York Times saying it wasn't kinky enough. Yes. I'll be back here. This is the Morning Buzz. Yes, you heard me correctly. We will be talking about the New York Times because there's a guy out there who says that the Disney live action remake of The Little Mermaid wasn't kinky enough, and he's kind of pissed off about it. Okay. Yes, this is happening. He said the quiet part out loud, folks. And Kohl's, they are now a part of this boycott. I'm very excited. Keep the pressure on. They hate you. They hate your kids. Never buy another product from Target, Kohl's, Bud Light. If you see something, do something. That's what I'm going to say. If you see something in this month of June, and it's the month of June, folks, it's the gay pride stuff, and you see a retail company putting out something that's targeting children, that's, going after children with this LGBTQ nonsense, just say, you know what? No, you don't need my business. If you need help, I recommend going to Public Square. They are not a sponsor or anything like that. Public Square. It's an app that I use to find conservative-owned businesses. Okay, I'll say that here on the live stream. If you need help, you can always reach out to me at 309-451-9299, and I can help you find alternatives. There are alternatives. And ladies, I'm going to be talking to you in the live stream. You have the power of the purse. Okay, you are the consumer. Women women are the people with the purchasing power. It's just the facts. Okay, this is why a lot of times when you go into the grocery store, they've got the flowers and the baked goods and things like that. They don't put like tools or like things men would like in the very front of the store. No, they get the flowers, and they get the very the heck, even sometimes the wine is out there in the front of the grocery stores to try to entice women to buy more things in the grocery store. It's because they are the ones who are doing a lot of the shopping. That's just statistically true. Now, ladies, you have the purchasing power. There are other options. Do not go to companies that hate you. Do not spend your money with places like Target. It's just not. It's not a good place to go. And I like this boycott. I think that this is something that needs to continue to happen. Now, NBC's report this morning, I'm going to be talking about that because basically they say that you're a bigot because you're boycotting. I'm going to go into the report that they've got, and they're trying to say that LGBT, the reason why they're doing this is not because of the ESG scores, and it looks good and favorable for their ESG scores, but rather the LGBTQ community is a high consumer. They are the one with the purchasing power, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So they pulled this. It's a report from LGBT Capital, which it's a 2019 report, and it's a financial services company. And according to this report, they say that LGBTQ people in the United States collectively represent roughly $900 billion in annual purchasing power. I question that number, and I question that company, the financial services company. Because how is that one possible? Because they only make up like 7% of the population. I'd like to see the breakdown of the report on that. But I mean, that hasn't made them immune to the backlash. These companies, it's intensified because of people like you with the actual purchasing power. Now, one thing I do want to say, Target, they had these, Satan respects pronouns and things like that. Christianity is still one of the most prevalent religions in the United States. Out of our population, about 63% of people identify as Christian or proclaim themselves to be Christian. So, I mean, you tell me who you'd rather peeve off, 7% of the population or 63% of the population? Hey, thanks so much for joining me here on the Morning Buzz. You can text me at 309-451-9299. I so do appreciate you tuning in. I told y'all I had a great Memorial Day. I spent I spent it outside a lot of the time. I got to spend some time with my dog and the family. We barbecued last night. It was a lot of fun. I went out to Kickapoo Creek Park. Probably one of the best parks in the state. Yes, I've been to a lot of state parks. Kickapoo Creek was probably my favorite that I've ever been to in the state of Illinois. I like this texter. They say, Kickapoo Creek was my favorite fishing spot when I was a teenager. I grew up in Lincoln, and I felt peace there from the world. I like that. I like that a lot. Speaking of Memorial Day, did you guys spend a lot of money on Memorial Day? Because I sure did. I went into the store, uh, and of course, I had to check out the prices for Bud Light. It's really funny because on the price tag, it says that you could get the Bud Light for 99 cents if you went to some sort of website and you filled out some sort of rebate thing or whatever. You could get the case of 24 of Bud Light, a pack of 24 for 99 cents. They are trying to get this beer off of the shelf. They are not selling any beer, Bud Light. But this Memorial Day, Americans spent so much on barbecues, and this is a crazy number for ketchup and mustard. Those ones, these barbecue staples, that really felt inflation. So ketchup was up 27.9% from the year before. Ribeye steaks were up 11.6 from last year, with pound of beef product costing an average about $12.57. Oh boy. So Axios did a report, and they said that barbecue staples like ketchup and mustard have had much larger increases than what the Consumer Price Index clocked as a 7.7% increase in food prices over the last year. The firm said that Memorial Day basket of 7 barbecue essential items costed $27.32 in 2023. Compare that to the $25.07 the same time last year. So ketchup came in with the largest increase in cost. 32-ounce bottle was up 27.9%. Mustard came in with second, a 20-ounce bottle costing you more. It was like 13% up in price this year in comparison to last year at the same time. Relish rounded out the top 3, so these are essentials. These are condiments. So if you didn't want to spend that much money, you could have just had the hot dog, maybe no bun, maybe no ketchup, maybe just the hot dog. That's probably all you could afford this year, right? But relish rounded out the 3, 12.3% increase in cost. Hot dogs, they costed 3% more. I mean, the cost to just have a good time with your family in the backyard and barbecue, it's just insane. And you can think Bidenflation. Bidenflation is the cost of voting stupid. Okay? This is all the cost of voting stupid. On the other side, I do want to get into Bud Light, the controversy there, and Kohl's is being boycotted as well. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me here on the live stream. I so do appreciate you. Be sure. Cat Peterson drinks Bud Light. I do not drink Bud Light. Never have. I do like Coors Light. Coors Light is good if I were to drink beer, but typically I just drink whiskey. I like this. Do you drink White Claws? Just curious, Colson. But yeah, I do drink Jack and Coke. That's the only thing I usually drink. Sometimes I drink wine. Sometimes I drink beer if I'm out with friends at dinner. But I'm not much of a drinker really anymore. The older you get, the more you can't do that stuff. I know I'm not that old. I'm 24. But it's bizarre. Can't really drink a whole lot without having a hangover the next morning at all. Like if I have one, I'll have a hangover, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I don't drink that much. I don't think it's really all that great for you. It's really bad for your sleep. If you drink a lot, you can't get, and being that I do what I do, right? I have to get up early in the morning, and I have to have my beauty rest, right? Beauty rest is a real thing. If you drink, then you can't get up in the morning. Like there is just no way, because what your body does and the REM cycles and things like that. If you drink in any kind of way, if you even have one, your body tries to catch up on sleep, which is really kind of bizarre, and you miss a lot of sleep. You miss an entire sleep cycle. So, yeah, don't drink a whole lot, but I do like Jack and Coke. I don't drink Bud Light. Never have, because one just doesn't taste well. And that's kind of interesting. I think that a lot of people just they don't like people like drinking, but people don't like binge drinking, right? And not a whole lot of people do. If you just poll people, they probably would say I have about two or three. Your average American has about two or three if they were to drink. If they don't do much more of that binge drinking, a lot of people don't like that because you get sick. Um, this is an easy way to boycott something. That this is why I think Bud Light is really facing what they're facing right now. It's because it's easy. You don't need alcohol. A little bit harder is going to be Target. That limits a lot of options for people. Um, One thing that I'm kind of shocked about is Walmart seems to be not partaking in this gay pride stuff, at least culturally, right? I haven't seen any kind of gay pride gear at Walmart. So I think Walmart is going to be safe-ish. They still do ESG scores, things like that. But right now, it appears to me that they aren't targeting children with their LGBTQ crap. Their onesies, and that's one thing that I don't think a whole lot of people understand is that this is not like being gay. This is being a pushing sexuality. People don't realize that being gay, LGBTQ, that actually means your sexuality. It means, do they know what being gay means? Like, it's not just a rainbow handbag. Being gay it's not a character trait. It's something that is actually has a definition. It means you are a homosexual. You have sexual intercourse with somebody of the same sex as you are. Like, that's what being gay is. And having a onesie promoting that sort of stuff, like a child, a baby, like, think of that. That's what they're not understanding. And NBC specifically doesn't understand that this morning. They, of course, are upset that conservatives are celebrating the backing Bud Light, celebrating backing Bud Light and others into a corner. So they've written this article, this report, and they're basically calling you a bigot for boycotting these people. But I don't think they really truly understand the reason for these boycotts. They're just going to say that you're a far right extremist for doing these boycotts, or that conservative politicians and religious groups and commentators, political commentators, far right political commentators are trying to lead you into a boycott, and there's no true reason behind it. But they'd be wrong in that there is a reason behind it. You're promoting sexuality in infants, right? Because at the end of the day, LGBTQ rights, promotion of it, at the end of the day, it's sex. Okay? So, like, it's not a fun handbag. It's not a character trait. It's not the same thing as calling somebody cool. Um, it's in fact it has a definition, and it means that you have sexual intercourse with somebody of the same sex as you. And words matter, and promotion of this kind of stuff matters. What I think is funny about this NBC report is that they'll sit there and they'll say that the LGBTQ people in the United States represent $900 billion in annual purchasing power, which really isn't a whole lot in comparison to, the rest of the population. But they're saying that that's the reason why major companies see a clear capitalist incentive. Um, Now, come on, those numbers, I'd love to see the report on this. I haven't dug into this report, but that's where they got their number, is the LGBT Capital. It's a financial services company. Now, I don't think that they're very unbiased here, folks, being that LGBT is in the name of the financial services company. But they only make up 7% of the population. So to jump to say that this was a capitalist incentive, that they were trying to be more inclusive, and that LGBT people have the purchasing power in the United States, that's why they're doing this. No. That's not true. There's no way that's true, because it's only 7% of the population. How can 7% of the population wield all of the purchasing power. They don't. They said the quiet part out loud. Oh boy, this is a crazy story. The New York Times. So they've come out, of course, with this critic. They're criticizing this new movie. I guess the movie released on Friday. I haven't looked at the real, like the numbers of how well it did or anything like that. I just read the New York Times article that's out there right now, and I had to stop reading because I was so upset. There's a question out there, and it's on social media. A lot of people are asking this question after Saturday. There was a paper published. It's a movie review of the Disney live action remake of The Little Mermaid. And it criticized the children's movie for lacking, quote, kinky content. So, like I said here on the Morning Buzz, my take on this, it's not so much that they casted the Little Mermaid, Ariel, right? Haley Bailey, starring, I think that's her name. She stars as Ariel. There's a very diverse cast, right? Racial diversity, things like that. It's not so much that for me. I mean, yes, there's the virtue signaling there. Okay, the main character is black. The reason why I take issue with it is because it's virtue signaling, and the purpose of these films, the live action remakes of Disney, I think is to create some sort of nostalgia. You as the parent should be able to take your kid to a kid-friendly movie and to show them this nostalgia, the movie you grew up on in real life, right? It's supposed to be a family fun outing where you can go watch a remake of a movie you grew up on. It's supposed to be the nostalgia. You can't have the nostalgia factor if the live action looks nothing like the movie that you watched growing up as a kid. That's the whole purpose of these remakes. I thought, right? The whole reason why you remake something like this, it's to create the nostalgia of that movie and to, be able to share that with your little one. If you go to these, right, these live action, I just don't go to anything Disney anymore. I just don't do it. But the live action remake of The Little Mermaid, she's black, right? The main character, Ariel, she's traditionally a redheaded mermaid. That's the whole nostalgia of it. If I were to say, what color hair does Ariel have? The first word out of your mouth is going to be red. Everybody knows that answer to that question because it's iconic. But they casted her as a black woman. And it's not so much the virtue signaling here that I'm talking about today. It's that the New York Times came out, and Wesley Morris is his name. He's a movie critic. And he says that Disney's live action remake of The Little Mermaid with Haley Bailey, starring Ariel and a diverse cast, reeks of obligation and noble intentions. Oh, wow. Okay, Wesley Morris. And then he says, joy, fun, mystery, risk, flavor, kink, they're missing. So he says it lacks joy. He says it lacks fun, mystery, risk, flavor, and kink. So he's calling for more kink in this Little Mermaid movie, this remake. The article published, the paper is titled, The Little Mermaid Review. The renovations are only skin deep. Wow, so he wants more. Wesley Morris claimed that the Disney movie missed the mark, quote, missed the mark. I'm just reading from the paper here, because the producers were too busy focusing on approval from the audience after making the bold decision to cast a black actress as Ariel. As a result, Wesley said that the children's movie lacked joy, fun, mystery, risk, flavor, and kink. Kink! Yes, the live-action remake of The Little Mermaid was released in theaters on Friday, and has been at the height of the culture war in America since Disney race-swapped the main character and revealed that Haley Bailey, the black actress and singer, I think she's very good. I think she's very talented. Like I said, it's not so much that they casted a black actor. One, it's the virtue signaling that bothers me. Two, it kind of defeats the purpose of having the nostalgia factor there. The iconic character, main character, she's white, she's redheaded, and she's a mermaid. We all know this. It kind of destroys the nostalgia factor, but it is what it is. My whole issue here this morning is that this New York Times article is of great concern because they said the quiet part out loud, folks. They want your children to experience kink. That is the end goal. At the end of the day, they want your kids to experience kink when they go out to a movie with their parent, with you. It's not grooming enough. That's your complaint, really, here, Wesley? While hundreds of individuals commented their distaste for the New York Times article, Post Millennial reports that the paper has not yet released a statement on the matter, nor have they pulled the article from their website. Why does the New York Times want more kink in a Disney movie? Comment. If you're watching on Facebook Live, comment right now, why does the New York Times want more kink in a Disney movie? And you can feel free to text me at 309-451-9299 this Tuesday morning. This is the Morning Buzz. Do want to shift gears here? Kinda. We're talking about Bud Light and a lot of other companies being backed into a corner, and the NBC News comes out. And NBC sucks, really. They really do. But they're not necessarily wrong on this. Conservative activists are taking joy. I mean, this weekend, I walked by the Bud Light and I wanted to see the prices. They were selling Bud Light cases of 24, a pack of 24 Bud Light, 99 cents. If you go to this website, do like this rebate thing, and you can get a pack of 24 for just 99 cents. That's what's going on here, folks. That's the Bud Light boycott. Conservative activists, I was in the store and I was like pumping my fist into the air. I was doing a slow clap. I was excited to see that 99-cent sticker on that Bud Light. I was very excited to see Bud Light stock cratering, not to mention their sales cratering, stock craters by billions of dollars following the brand's celebration of course, Dylan Mulvaney, 365 Days of Girlhood. He's a weird trans TikToker who is quite offensive and talks about how we should all be normalizing the bulge and wears very provocative clothing on TikTok. And they hired Dylan Mulvaney as some sort of spokesperson for the brand. Now we're watching Target take a hit, and that's very satisfying too. Target hasn't changed anything, really. They might have moved their Pride stuff from the front of the store to the back of the store in some locations. They're still promoting books for kids that include LGBTIA plus ABCDEFG propaganda. Like this book, it's called Bye Bye Binary. And it's targeting children. And it's telling children that there is no such thing as gender. And you can wake up one day and feel like a girl, and the next day you can feel like a man. That's what this book says, which I just don't understand. Like binary and gender, that's all stuff. If you want to study that in college, whatever. But this propaganda, pushing this stuff on kids, these are very hard concepts to understand. And I don't think that 5-year-olds can quite wrap their head around the binary and the non-binary gender stuff. So keep the pressure on. They hate you. They hate your kids. Never buy another product from Target unless they stop. Until they stop. If they stop this nonsense, then we can continue. Okay, that's what needs the demands. Now parents can dress their infants ages 3 to 9 months, babies, in a Kohl's onesies. So Kohl's, I talked about this a little bit last week. Now they're facing a boycott, possibly. There's these onesies for 3 to 9 month olds. I mean, babies that feature rainbows and rainbow stripes and words that say like love is love and happy pride. You can even buy a variety pack of 5 baby pride themed onesies, which includes a selection of different LGBTQ slogans and designs. So this is a onesie, it's a pack of 5. And at the end of the day, LGBTQ, what this all is sexuality, okay? Being gay is not a character trait. Being gay is, and it has a definition. That means that you have sexual intercourse of some kind with that of the same sex as you. It's homosexuality, sexuality, keyword. This is not something we should be putting on 3-month-olds. Doesn't make any sense, okay? They shouldn't be having sex at that age. They can't. It's against the law. It's just wild, and it's not a fad. It's not a rainbow handbag. It's not something that it's not the same thing as saying you're cool. Okay, this is actually sexuality. So NBC's report this morning. I want to dig into this because they're calling you a bigot for boycotting. Here it is. But several mainstream brands have publicly supported LGBTQ people for years. So what's different now? Advocates and marketing experts say it's the growing power of a vocal minority of the far-right political commentators, conservative politicians, and religious groups, which have led to calls to a boycott of these companies, while these far-right wing groups, these right-wing groups and individuals also support a historic wave of state legislation that seeks to restrict LGBTQ rights. The firestorm around these brands stem in part from efforts made by corporations to be more inclusive. In recent years, against a backdrop of growing cultural visibility for historical marginalized communities, consumer-focused companies have increasingly featured LGBTQ people in advertising, marketing, and other public-facing initiatives such as Pride events. Of course, major companies also saw a clear capitalist incentive. Here we go. This is where it gets crazy. LGBTQ people in the United States collectively represent roughly $900 billion in annual purchasing power, which isn't a whole lot, according to a 2019 report from LGBT Capital, a financial services company. So they're saying, this is what NBC is saying. They are saying that the reason why these companies are doing this is because LGBT people make up a majority of the purchasing power in the United States, which is so far from the truth. They pulled this 2019 report from LGBT Capital, this financial services company, and I don't think that they're very unbiased considering they have LGBT in the name. They're saying that because there's $900 billion in annual purchasing power from this community, that's the reason why these major companies like Target, Kohl's, Bud Light, they've made these decisions to try to shove this down your throat. Look, folks, LGBTQ people, these people who identify that way, they make up 7% of the population. That's it. They do not have purchasing power. There's no way mathematically that 7% of the population can make up all of the purchasing power. I will tell you who has the purchasing power, and marketing people know this. Women. Women have the purchasing power. They don't like that women are being erased. They don't like that they're targeting children with your gay onesies. Okay, they don't like that sort of thing. Women have the purchasing power. Don't believe me? The reason why you see flowers, bottles of wine, baked goods right when you walk into the store. Come on, folks. It's because they want the women to continue shopping in the store. That's why you see the baked goods, the goodies, and the flowers, right? Okay? That women are the purchasing power, and they don't like this stuff. They don't like the LGBTQ nonsense. So, and what I want to say here is Christianity is still the most prevalent religion in the United States. I've got it here. 63% of the U.S. population identifies or says that they are Christian or identifies with some sort of Christian religion. 63% of the U.S. population. So when you have shirts that say Satan respects your pronouns, yeah, you might have some backlash from a lot of people in the United States. Anyway, so I've got to get going here. I've got to take a break, but I'm going to be back here on the other side, finishing this story out. But also, have you seen this? The LA Dodgers Pride Night controversy. You guys remember this? Where they've got these drag nun groups. They're called the DC Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. This is a drag nun group, and they were taped There's video of them out there, and they're set to celebrate Pride Month with the LA Dodgers. So there's this big backlash against the LA Dodgers now. And according to Fox News, this is just in. Former Biden nuclear official Sam Brinton, the guy that was stealing all of the luggage, I guess he was a principal officer from its founding in 2016 and 2018. He founded this nun group, this drag nun group. I can't say that I'm surprised. I'll be back. Okay, folks, we are back here on the live stream. If you are watching right now, please like and share the video with your friends. This is so important. The reason why I ask you to like and share this video is because we still have people in this community and in the state of Illinois and in this nation who continue to read NBC and who continue to frequent mainstream news sites and shows like this debunk things that they say. I just went through an entire NBC article and they pulled, I'll throw it in the comments, they pulled this report from 2019. It was obviously a financial services company that has a clear leaning. They say that LGBTQ people in the United States collectively represent roughly $900 billion in annual purchasing power. And that's the reason why major companies have seen this clear capitalist incentive that, they have all of the purchasing power. So the reason why we are putting all of the stuff out there is because we want them to be buying, and that there's a capitalist incentive here. And that's just not true. Okay. They are not a majority of the purchasing power, the LGBTQ community, because at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot of the percentage of U.S. adults who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, because that's only increased. It's increased, I will say that, to 7.1%. Now, making decisions based off of 7.1% of the population, probably capitalist. You can't say that that's a capitalist incentive, because you're making a decision off of 7% of the population, a business decision off of a small group of people, just a small group of people. In some cases that works if you're creating audiences, if you're creating a niche. Right now, if you are opening up a gay shop in Bloomington and that's all you sell, then yes, that would probably be smart. But these big box stores, Target, these big retail companies, they're supposed to be serving the mainstream. That is that's their model, because they have more to offer than just the LGBT stuff. They have food, they have clothes. This is supposed to be their model. Their business model is to serve Americans. Or not even Americans, just people, right? Because everybody needs clothes, everybody needs food. And they're making decisions based off of 7% of the population. You can't say that that's why. I mean, truly, NBC, come on. You can't say that's why they've been making these business decisions, is because they make up the purchasing power. That's just not true. Now, I will say this. Christianity still the most prevalent religion in the United States. And when you peeve off the Christians, most likely you're not going to be making a lot of money, because the numbers don't lie. 63% of the U.S. population, that's 332 million in 2021. We were at 63% of people identifying as Christian. That is down, it's decreased, but still a majority of people identify as Christian in the United States. And when you have shirts that say Satan respects pronouns, yeah, you are not going to have Christians frequenting your business anymore. And you've completely annihilated the Christian consumer. You just won't have them coming into your store anymore. And if I were in charge of these deals and in charge of the money here, what I would say is we might not want to peeve off the Christian community in comparison to the LGBTQ community, because there's way less LGBTQ plus people out there than there are Christians. And if you have a mainstream product, which Target and Kohl's and Walmart are all mainstream, because they have products made for everyone. That's what they've been marketing themselves as for years. They have products for everything and everyone. Then why would you annihilate 63% of the population with shirts that say Satan respects my pronouns? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We're back. Hold on. Stop telling us how to live, or we stop buying your stuff. It's pretty simple. It's amazing that most Americans don't agree with the sexualization and the abuse of children. Imagine that, NBC. So NBC News, they're calling you a bigot this morning because they say you're a mean conservative for backing Bud Light and Target and Kohl's into corners. Yeah, well, we are backing them into a corner because they're targeting children. Just don't target the kids then. Just don't do it. And I think it's so funny, this NBC report, they're trying to say that the LGBT people in the United States, these major companies, they see a clear capitalist incentive. That means that they are doing this because they think that there is a lot of purchasing power in the LGBTQ community. And they base it off of this report. One report. They cite one report in the article. And they say a 2019 report from the LGBT capital. Okay. I would imagine that they are biased because they have LGBT in their name. It's a financial services company, and they say that the LGBT people in the United States roughly represents $900 billion in annual purchasing power, which I don't know if that's all true. I'd have to dig through this 2019 report, and frankly, I just don't want to, because I can pretty easily debunk this report. 7%, that's it, of the United States population identifies as LGBTQ. They identify within that, in that community. And I'm just going to say it. If it's 7% of the population, why would you make any kind of decisions surrounding 7% of the population when you have products that are made for the mainstream? And like I said, Target is made for the mainstream because they sell all kinds of stuff. They're a big box store. They're a big retail company. They're not a niche. Now, I will say this. If you open up a LGBTQ store in downtown Bloomington, it might do well if that's all you sell, because you've created a niche. You've created a small pocket of, and you have a consumer base that will come to your store for that product because they know they can come to that store for that product. They are not, Target is not following basic business models at all. I mean, this is insanity. And look, I've talked to gay people, and this is what gay people tell me all of the time. They said, we want to cut the TQ out of LGBTQ. And I say, what do you mean by that? And they said, no one cared until the TQs, these trans queer people, these bizarre people, started shoving the sexualization and the promoting of maiming body parts, maiming children's body parts. That's nobody cared about LGBTQ stuff in stores. Nobody really cared if you sold something rainbow-like, but it's the targeting of children that really strikes a nerve in people. So you shouldn't write these articles, NBC, until you have a better understanding of the issue. This is pure propaganda. You're trying to say that these main companies had numbers that they were working off of to justify putting this stuff on their shelves. And frankly, the numbers aren't there. I will cite this number, though. Christianity is a very prevalent religion here in the United States. Very prevalent still, although it's decreased. Estimates from 2021. This is from, I think, Gallup or something. Yeah. They say that the U.S. population is made up of 63% Christian. So 63% of the U.S. population identifies as Christian. And you are completely annihilating the Christian purchasing power, right? They have purchasing power as Christians. And having t-shirts that read, Satan respects respects your pronouns. Yeah, you're annihilating 63% of the US population from doing business with you, Target. If I was Target, I would be looking at the 63%, the people who make up 63% of the population, not necessarily 7.1% of the population. I'm just saying. All right. On the other side, we're going to be talking with Scott Robbins for Scott's Takes. Did y'all hear that ketchup it's insane how much prices. Bidenflation is the cost of voting stupid. Memorial Day staples like ketchup just rocked by inflation. Ketchup is up 27.9% in cost. Ribeye steaks were up 11.6% from last year. A pound of beef costing you about $12.57. That's insanity. I'm going to be back with Scott Robbins. This is The Morning Buzz with Kat. I can't believe it, Scott Robbins, an ex-con wearing one of these peacekeeper vests took part in a vicious beating and robbery in Chicago over this past weekend. Scott Robbins joins me here for the Morning Buzz. How you doing? How was your Memorial Day weekend?
It was good.
Because it wasn't great for the people in Chicago.
No, it wasn't. Actually, I was near there. I mean, what?
You okay, Scott?
I had a granddaughter in Michigan that graduated from high school, so I went up to her graduation with my daughter. And it's her niece, her sister's kid. So anyway, at any rate, we went through I think we went through 4 states, which was interesting. But Chicago, you're right there on 80, and you're near Chicago. We got caught in Chicago traffic on the way up. But at any rate, I find this all interesting for a number of reasons. I don't know anything about this peacekeeper thing. I don't who deployed them. Did Pritzker deploy them?
JB and the Chicago, they worked together on it.
Well, who are these people? Do we know who they are?
Well, we know who one was. He was an ex-con. So we know that they weren't, he was wearing one of these peacekeeper vests. I don't know if he took it off somebody and then started wearing it, or if he was a part of these peacekeepers. It's not yet known, according to the New York Post here, but he was an ex-con, and he was wearing one of these vests, and they weren't wearing police gear. They were wearing like yellow vests, like neon, like traffic.
And was that their job to do? I don't know nothing about this.
How do you keep the peace without a gun?
Well, there in particular.
Yeah.
No, it was another bloody weekend in Chicago, and I've never heard of this before. This peacekeeper thing. All right, well, you need to dive into that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I got to find it because maybe I want to be a peacekeeper, huh?
Peacekeepers.
It's like the A-team, right? You take all these guys who are cons and put them together, and they solve crimes. I don't know what right?
The A-team.
I don't know what this is. This is so weird. All right, but only in Illinois could that happen, right?
Yeah.
The stats from Chicago this weekend, by the way: 51 shot, 12 killed, including a 2-year-old. Just terrible story. This is the thing, guys. We talk about this all the time. We talk about media bias. We talk about how they tilt stories and angle them for their political objectives, and they do it right in front of you. And most of the time, you don't even realize it's happening to you. They did a story today. Well, there was this story on the Today Show opened with violent crime in cities, right? A lot of violent crime in cities over the Memorial Day weekend. And they mentioned all the people that were shot and, some were killed and all this. And the focus of the story was a shooting that took place in Florida on the boardwalk, and 9 people were injured. Now, that's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing. Mm-hmm. 9 people were injured, and it was a drive-by shooting, and it was awful, right? But they don't mention Chicago. They don't mention Philadelphia. They don't mention Detroit. They don't mention what was going on in these cities. And I wonder why, Kat. Could it be that perhaps they're all run by governors and mayors that they politically align with, and they don't want to put them in a bad light. Mm-hmm. Now, Florida is open season because, after all, it's a red state.
It's a red state run
and
by
that's where Ron
Republican.
DeSantis is at, and that's where it's. This is the stuff I talk about. It isn't necessarily they're coming right out and saying it a lot of times. It's just the way they present things. Mm-hmm. And again, this may be a minor
this is
thing.
National news here in Chicago. You've got, what was it, 51 you said, Scott?
Yeah, 50 shot. Yeah.
50 shot. And then on top of that layered piece there, you've got these people dressed, I don't know, in these vests who are supposed to be keeping the peace. Yeah. And they failed. This is national news. That nowhere have I ever heard of something as such as a peacekeeper. And I did look this up, Scott, and I think I understand what they are.
Okay.
There are more than 30 trained, so that's just more than 30. You just had 30? Anyway. So a press release released out by the Illinois Department of Human Services, so this is JB, they sent out this citywide crisis prevention and response unit for Chicago. And they're 30 trained neighborhood peacekeepers. So they took them from neighborhoods from within the community there in Chicago, and they deployed them. And they are trained in de-escalation, conflict resolution, and crisis support. So they're not cops. They're just people from the neighborhood. They're individuals who had some sort of training through the Illinois Department of Human Services.
Great.
And they're trained in conflict resolution.
Excuse me, gangbanger, but tell me about your childhood.
Hey, let that guy go. Stop,
Yeah.
stop beating him. Can we talk about your
Yeah.
childhood just real quick?
And the pain. I can see the pain in your eyes from being oppressed. Can we, God, I mean, this is what I talk about this all the time. All right, let's get to Bowman because I do want to play this before we leave today for sure. This is President Biden and Speaker McCarthy apparently have a tentative debt ceiling deal, right? That's what we're hearing anyway. Now, there are members of Congress on both sides of the aisle now who are a little skeptical. One of those people is the far-left loon Democratic Rep Jamal Bowman. He was on CNN with Wolf Blitzer. Listen to this wackiness. Now, this should be an ad for the Republican Party. If they seize the moment and they play this over and over again, because let's face it, 10 people saw it on CNN, you could expand the base of this thing and say this is what they believe. This is who they are. Here's Jamal Brown telling me why he's got a problem with the debt ceiling deal as he sees it anyway. Here we go. Ding. Ding.
What?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it gets better. Okay. This SNAP thing is boggles my mind too. If you're able-bodied, and again, it's got caveats all over it. If you're able-bodied, if you're an able-bodied American, and you're making your living through the mailbox every month, courtesy of the taxpayers, all we're asking you to do is community project sort of work to give back so you can earn your way. Mm-hmm. That's all. That's it. And it's become a bugaboo because every time there's a program like this that starts, there are rules in place for these programs that must be met. And then they start to slowly get peeled away till there aren't any rules anymore. You just get the money or you get the benefits or whatever it is. Nobody asks questions and it's out of control. You won't be able to attain the level it is right now for very much longer. You just can't. It's not affordable. You can't do it. And all you're asking is for somebody to participate in life on some level and say, hey, can you help out? Can you volunteer? Can you do these things? We want to make this a requirement so you receive this. Also, work, and receiving something for your work is part of pride, is part of being an adult, a grown person. I mean, that's why I say nobody ever washes a rental car. That's true.
Yeah.
You don't own it. You don't care.
Yep.
You know, you got no money in it. You got no investment in it. So anyway, there you go. That's part of the requirement. Now, the green weenie stuff, I mean, and again, this is what these guys want to do. Nobody's talking about the cost of it. Nobody's talking about what it's going to take. Nobody's really even talking seriously about what the ramifications of climate change are. It changes all the time.
So we've had severe weather. He brings up severe weather events.
I know.
And I'm just like, what are you talking about? There hasn't been. There's no data that suggests that these have been ramping up because of climate change. They just happen.
And let's make sure that the country that pollutes the most in the world,
yes,
which is China, they're looking at us going, you know what? Go pound sand. We're not doing this, and you're not going to make us do it. So there you go. Yeah. Gosh dang. Every time I hear this stuff, I'm like, okay, you need to extrapolate that, and you need to play, hey, if the Democrats are elected, here's what they're going to do. Here's what they want to do. They want to do this. So do you think that's fair? Do you think that's equitable? Do you think that's right? Of course it isn't. But they'll do it anyway. So, yeah, but they won't. I mean, they'll screw it up anyway. They won't do it.
It's the same thing. So, I real quick, I have to tell you about this guy here in Bloomington. This guy, he shows up for public comment at one of these city council meetings, right? I don't know who he is. He has a hammer and a sickle, and he says that he's a communist. And he's upset about this housing project going up, and he says it needs to be more affordable, right? These
Yeah.
houses. And he goes, that needs to be for minimum wage or whatever. It needs to be correlated with minimum wage. And so that way somebody who's on minimum wage can afford to live in these houses. And what these people don't understand, like the SNAP benefit stuff that you were bringing up, they don't understand that that's not a goal. Like the end goal is not to be on minimum
No.
wage. Right? That should be something
No.
that is like, I don't want to be on minimum wage anymore. I'm going to try and try and try to be better and get off of minimum wage. It's not something that you should shoot for and be on forever. There's a reason why
Well,
it's called minimum wage.
Well, the intention of all of those programs was to hand up. You're going through a rough patch. I get it. You know, we want to help. We're here to help, and we're here to help you get back on your feet and sustainable again. That was the idea behind it. You know, outside of disability, which of course no one asks and begs. No one wants disability, right? Unless of course you're lying about your condition. I know people like that too. Unfortunately, I do, who continue to receive money, and although they're not really disabled, they find some doctor that'll tell people they are, and therefore they are. Anyway, long story. But anyway, those programs are there because of something that happens to you tragically, that is through no fault of your own, that you need that help during that time when you rebuild your life and put it back together again. I'm one of those people. But the lifestyle is where you run into trouble, where it's, generational. This is what we do for a living.
Yeah.
That's when you run into trouble.
Yeah.
And that's where these programs are.
I want to stay on
asking
Snap forever,
someone,
and I think that my job at McDonald's should always keep me
Pay.
to stay.
Or it should pay me $75,000 a year.
Yeah.
Well, it will if the Big Mac is $27 to buy one.
Yeah.
That's the only way that's sustainable. It won't work. And you know what? If Big Macs are $27, no one's going to buy them. I mean, this is the cycle, right? I mean, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
I'm glad you're
any
home
problems
safe
today.
now, Scott.
I am. Yes, I'm home safe. And
Passing
I
through
tried to
Chicago.
stay away from the weekend. I tried to stay away from everything. I couldn't help myself. I get sucked back in because sure as heck when I'm somewhere, someone will say, "What do you think about this?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know about this. Let me read up on it." "Oh, no, I hate it." Okay. All right. All right, Kat. Have a good day.
You have a great day, Scott Robbins.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you tomorrow. Scott Robbins will be on later tonight, folks, at 8 o'clock for Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins. I'll be back on the other side. I am on Facebook Live. You can see me in the studio and on YouTube. If you type in Kat Peterson or Conservative Kat, you can see me live on YouTube or on Facebook. I'll be back with more stories. This is The Morning Buzz. Hey friends, thanks so much for joining me. Scott Robbins joins me every morning at about 7:35. We run through the news of the day there. I just played for you Bowman. He's out of New York, Jamal Bowman, and he said that he was skeptical of this debt deal, and he said that we need to stop drilling for fossil fuels completely. These people are so just extreme. You cannot stop drilling for fossil fuels completely. You just can't do it. It doesn't make any kind of sense. Fiscally, it doesn't make sense at all. But this guy says it. And the Republicans should use this tape as an advertisement of how stupid these people are. Now, I'm not very happy about the deals that have been made here, the concessions regarding the debt ceiling. I think that we could have had some better things in there, more cuts, less spending. I am glad that we got some concessions in the debt ceiling deal. The people who wanted us to fold immediately would have gotten none. But we could have gotten more if it had not been for these neocons in the House who care more about spending on foreign wars, and they want to give unlimited cash to General Milley's military than they care about America. And folks, I care about our servicemen and women. We just celebrated Memorial Day. Service members, they gave up their lives for our freedoms here in this nation. We as Americans are very spoiled. We're spoiled rotten. We have freedoms to barbecue, to swim, and to enjoy our weekends. And to have 3-day weekends right from work weeks and things like that. And they died for our freedoms. Jesus died for our soul. But I'm all for this military spending and things like that, but when we're spending it on foreign wars and giving it to countries who hate us, probably not a good idea. And we should be talking about peace. Nobody's talking about peace, and these neocons just want to keep spending money. So if you're mad about the debt ceiling, okay, if you're mad about the debt ceiling debt and them talking about raising that debt ceiling higher and higher and higher, the Democrats, if they had it their way, we'd just raise it and just keep spending, spending, spending. We made some concessions. We made some cuts, not a lot. Like that gentleman, Bowman, said he's upset because there were requirements that you had to meet in order to get the SNAP benefits, which isn't really a cut. It's just making a requirement. And they didn't cut Joe Manchin's pipeline initiative to try to drill for fossil fuels to make energy that's more affordable than outsourcing it and trying to buy it from China. A lot of these neocons, they were holding this entire deal hostage. And if you're mad about the debt ceiling deal, then you can blame the neocons. They refused to budge on any cuts to our woke military. We should have made some cuts to this woke military. We shouldn't be spending money on training DEI initiatives or anything like that. Or we should be cutting certain administrative roles that do these types of trainings. We could have had a much better deal if we had a GOP that was willing to limit money that we send over to countries that hate us. We should not be in a proxy war with Russia right now, and we are, because of these neocons. I'm going to be back here very shortly, so we're going to wrap up the 7 o'clock hour, and then I'm going to get into the 8 o'clock hour here. Be sure to like, comment, share. I like Don Rains. He says, not long ago it was 1% to 2%. I'm surprised it's become 7%. Yeah, they make up 7% of the population, the LGBTQ people. I was talking about that because they tried to say that 7% of the population has a heavy purchasing power. That's not true. You can cite whatever report you want, but 7% of the population doesn't hold all of the purchasing power or hold a significant amount. There's just, the numbers don't add up. I can't believe it, folks. I really just can't believe what's going on here when it comes to the Chicago peacekeepers. So over the weekend, we had Chicago peacekeepers up there, the Illinois Department of Human Services and JB Jellybean. They announced this citywide crisis prevention response unit, and it turns out they didn't do all that well because over 50 people were shot in the city of Chicago. Yes. It's tragic. It's a bloodbath. You can't go to Chicago anymore. You can't go and enjoy a nice date or a nice outing with the family in Chicago out on Navy Pier. You can't do it anymore because it's unsafe. And that's clear because Memorial Day weekend, they had over 50 people shot. Now, according to this press release, we've got 30 trained neighborhood peacekeepers who were a part of this a group that they were trying to provide, quote, assistance in de-escalation, conflict resolution, and crisis support in the city. And it didn't work. I mean, I could have told you that much because peacekeepers, you had them in yellow vests and you had them going out there and walking up to the gangbanger saying, hey, tell me about your childhood. Oh, okay. How does that make you feel? No, that's not going to work. So according to the press release, the group of peacekeepers were supposed to preempt any violent actions, including in parks and at large events. The program, quote, addresses conflicts in high-risk blocks and provides engagement opportunities for those most at risk. Oh, God, these peacekeepers are trained in crowd de-escalation and crisis interruption. Guys, this is what Brandon Johnson said. He said that this group, it's called the Citywide Crisis Prevention Response Unit, is an essential tool to keeping our communities safe because these individuals bring invaluable insight and knowledge that allow us to reduce conflict before it escalates. Well, you didn't do a great job because 50 people shot in Chicago. Folks, people died over the weekend in Chicago. And actually, I've got this story. Now, I have no idea whether this ex-con in this Peacekeeper vest was a part of the Peacekeepers unit. I have to do a little bit more research on that, but I've got a story here from the New York Post. And they're saying that this ex-con was wearing a Peacekeeper's vest and he took part in a vicious beating and robbery of a Chicago motorist over the Memorial Day weekend. His name is Oscar Montez, and he's 31 years old. And he was wearing one of these yellow neon vests worn by city-appointed group of peacekeepers. These peacekeepers were put out there to try to suppress violence over the historically violent stretch. We know that Memorial Day weekend in Chicago is always bloody. But this is an interesting story because we've got an ex-con in one of these vests. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. We've got another hour here on the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. I am going to be talking about Joe Biden. He's he went back to the White House briefly after his vacation in Camp David over the weekend, just before he headed back to his Wilmington home for the rest of his Memorial Day vacation. Now, before he took off in the helicopter, he took some time to mock reporters and to not answer questions about the debt negotiation deal. Now, the big question as to whether this is going to pass, with people on both the right and left unhappy with it. That's the big question right now. And people ask Joe Biden, what are your thoughts about the negotiations? What are your thoughts about the deal? Do you like the deal? He couldn't answer any of it. He dismissed any budget questions from the reporters and he mocked them and he said that you're not living in the real world. Okay, me asking you if you like the deal, Joe, I don't know if that's necessarily not living in the real world. Did the New York Times say the quiet part out loud, folks? So there's a question out there. That question is left out there on social media. Did they say the quiet part out loud? This comes after this paper was published, after the Disney live action remake of The Little Mermaid hit the theaters on Friday. And then The Little Mermaid was criticized by this guy in the New York Times as, quote, not being kinky enough. So he's big mad that this movie wasn't kinky enough for kids. Yes, this New York Times reporter said that. NBC, they're saying that conservatives are celebrating the backing of Bud Light and Target and Kohl's into corners, and they're not exactly wrong there, folks. We are happy about that. They're saying that you're a bigot, but the reason why you're backing these people into a corner and you're boycotting Bud Light and you're boycotting Target is because they are targeting children. They're not necessarily wrong on this, NBC. Conservative activists, conservatives, they have taken some joy in seeing that Bud Light stock is completely cratered by billions of dollars. And the reason why that happened was because Dylan Mulvaney got out there and made a mockery of women, made a mockery of this nation by a meeting with our president and saying that he is for chopping off the genitals of children. And now we're watching Target take a hit, and we are going to be watching Kohl's probably take a hit here too, because they're selling these little onesies with gay pride stuff on it. And it's just like 3 to 9 month olds. It's not okay to be promoting sexuality on a 3-month-old. Didn't know we had to have this conversation, but we do. So we're going to start out with Joe Biden, some questions he took from some reporters. When I say taking some questions, what I really mean is that he deflected, mocked, and just wouldn't answer questions about the debt ceiling. Also wouldn't answer questions about a possible pardon that Ron DeSantis could give Donald Trump if he were to be president. Now, like I said, folks, Ron is irrelevant. According to polls, look, he's not going irrelevant Ron. Okay, there's no way that he could be president. And if he were to be the nominee, he has said that he would pardon people who have been victims of the political weaponization of the government. Now, I'm really not a big fan of this bipartisan deal, so-called, this debt deal. And the reason why I'm not so happy about it is because it could have gone further. Now, I am glad that we got some concessions. So things like requirements for SNAP, we should require them to do some things in order to get that. That's not necessarily a cut. And we're trying to keep Joe Manchin's pipeline. These are good things within the deal to deal with the spending, to deal with cuts, things like that, and to not raise the debt ceiling anymore. Now, I am glad that we've gotten some concessions here. And the people who wanted us to fold immediately would have gotten none. Okay. But we could have gotten way more if it had not been for these stupid neocons. Nikki Haley. No, these neocons who care more about foreign wars and unlimited cash for General Milley's military than they do about America. I'm all for spending money on the military. Yes. However, we don't have unlimited cash to give to Ukraine. If you're mad about the debt ceiling, blame the neocons because they were holding this entire deal hostage. They refused to budge on any kind of cuts to our woke military. And we could have had a much better deal if they had a GOP, if we had a GOP who is willing to limit the money we send to countries that hate us. Okay, that's my thoughts here about these concessions that were made in this debt ceiling deal. Joe Biden was asked about the debt ceiling deal. I want to get into that here on the Morning Buzz a little bit later. Did the New York Times say the quiet part out loud? Well, people are asking this question after there was a paper published by the New York Times, and it's a movie review of the Disney live-action remake of The Little Mermaid, which hit theaters this past weekend on Friday. And this guy in this paper published by the New York Times, he's saying that the movie wasn't kinky enough. Yeah, believe it or not. And then a little bit later, I want to rip into NBC a little bit because they're calling you a bigot because you're boycotting Bud Light and Target. Okay, so we've got all of that and more ahead on the Morning Buzz. If you want to see me live in the studio, if you want to see the clips that I'm playing for you of Joe Biden, you can tune in via the live stream on YouTube and on Facebook. We're also on Rumble. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Helps us out. So let's play this little interaction that I've got for you. Joe Biden and this reporter, the reporter asking some very basic questions of our commander-in-chief, our basement dweller, Joe. Let's take a listen. So he was saying all of that before getting into the helicopter to finish out his vacation. Joe Biden, he was asked, who got the better deal? Was it Republicans or Democrats? And he said, quote, it's a bipartisan deal. The reporter then comes back with a very simple question. Is this going to get done on June 5th, by June 5th? And Joe Biden says, oh, yes. And she says, no question. She holds his feet a little bit to the fire there. And Joe Biden says, you guys don't live in the real world. And then he says, there's no question. There's no reason why it shouldn't get done on the 5th. Okay. Now, he mocked their understanding of the negotiations, and he said that he'd be foolish to talk about the negotiations before the vote was taken. Now, he says that he'd be foolish to talk about it before the vote's actually taken, and he tries to give this reasoning. So when he was asked what he would tell them about the negotiations, he goes, quote, I'm not going to tell you. Then he said it would be absurd to try to cast the deal as a win now, that it would get passed. And he said that some House progressives have ripped it, saying it would lock in cuts pushed by Republicans. So House progressives like this guy, I'll play for you Jamal Bowman, sorry. Jamal, he was asked about what he thought about the debt deal, and he's a far left progressivist, and these are the progressives that he's talking about. Some progressives are very upset about the debt deal because of the cuts that they could be seeing. So here we go. Let's take a listen.
That is one major problem with the bill. Another major Americans are already living in poverty.
My God. So that's the progressives. Those are the progressives that are upset about the debt deal. They're saying that the cuts go too far and that these cuts would be locked in. And these cuts were pushed by Republicans, and they're saying that they got screwed in this deal. Now, Joe Biden goes on and he says, one of the things that I hear some of you saying is that, quote, why doesn't Joe Biden say how good the deal is? Why would Joe Biden say what a good deal is before the vote. So it's hard to. I'm working on transcriptions here from the basement dweller. And he says, why would Biden say what a good deal it is before the vote? You think that's going to help me get it passed? No, that's why you guys don't bargain very well anyway. So this is things that Joe Biden are saying. This is an admission that he knows how fragile this deal is. He won't come out. He won't say the deal is good. He won't come out and say the deal thinks that it'll get passed, this debt ceiling deal. That's an admission that he knows how fragile this deal is. And he thinks anything he might say to these reporters could shake it. That's also so Biden. This is just so Joe Biden. Whenever he is challenged on an issue, he goes straight to attacking, trying to diminish the people asking the questions, even if they're relatively straightforward, like these ones, right? They're trying to ask and trying to understand if he's for the deal, if he thinks it's a good deal, if he thinks the deal is going to be passed. These are very straightforward questions, and he just goes straight to attacking these reporters and mocking them, really, because he's a petty human being. And yet most of these reporters go along with it, and they go along with being treated so poorly and like dirt because they don't call him out on his behavior. I'm glad we got some concessions, like I said, in the debt ceiling deal, but we could have gotten way more if it had not been for these stupid neocons who care more about these foreign wars and giving unlimited cash to General Milley's military than they care about America. If you're mad about the debt ceiling deal like I am, just blame the neocons, because they were holding the deal hostage the entire time. And they really just refused to budge on any kind of cuts to our woke military. And we could have had a much better deal if we had a GOP that was willing to limit the money that we were sending over to countries that hate us. Also, let's talk about this. Peter Doocy asking questions of Joe Biden there right before he got on the helicopter for his vacation. To finish out his vacation for Memorial Day. So Peter Doocy stops him and he says, look, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he made some remarks here regarding former President Donald Trump and pardoning him if he were to become president. And DeSantis said that he would look into at some point, if he were to be president, pardoning people who were victims of, quote, weaponization or political targeting, and he would be aggressive in issuing pardons. So he didn't say specifically Donald Trump, but he indicated that he would be open to the idea if Donald Trump were to be convicted of something, some sort of witch hunt, right, that they've got against him. But he said that it would be a case-by-case basis. And then Peter Doocy, Fox News' Peter Doocy, asked Joe Biden about that and what he thought about it. And his answer is, of course, exactly what Joe Biden does. When he doesn't want to answer any kind of question, he laughs, smiles, and then deflects, and then runs away. So if you want to see me live in the studio and see Joe Biden running away from Peter Doocy, be sure to join the live stream. But here we go. Here's what it sounded like. Here's Joe Biden just deflecting and running away from Peter Doocy. So he runs away. He runs away from Peter Doocy. And I don't know, some reporters are saying that he said, I'll see you later, guys, or that's a great question. He shot back at Peter Doocy and said, that's a great question. I don't know if he said that kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to hear what exactly he says there or make out. But first, I want to point this out. He doesn't want to answer that question. The reason why is because he can't acknowledge the fact that he's so far down in the polls right now that Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump are beating Biden. Trump more so. Trump is beating Joe Biden in a general by 7 points, according to a very renowned poll, and a trustworthy poll. He's beating Joe Biden more than a DeSantis would be in a general. But fact is that they both beat him in a general. Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. Further, he doesn't want to say anything about pardons right now because get this, the whole situation with Hunter Biden, I'm sure this is why he's saying this. He could possibly be at one point looking at some sort of pardon for the first son. If he has to do that, that's not going to go over very well. So I think he's trying to deflect, stay away from the whole pardoning subject, because he could be pardoning his son. He's already deep in the doghouse in popularity, and that would do him in even more with independence. People would not, if he pardons his son, Hunter, that is not going to look good for the puppet in chief basement dweller Joe. I do have to take a break, but when we come back, let's talk about it. The New York Times. Did they say the quiet part out loud, folks? There's a guy who published an article, and he is very upset. He's criticizing this new movie. It's the Disney live-action remake of The Little Mermaid, and he's upset that it's not kinky enough. It's a children's movie, sir. It's a kid's movie. On the other side, this is the Morning Buzz. All right, folks, exclusive content for you. Oh, you guys didn't hear either clip. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I have this button turned off. I'm sorry about that. I will be sure to play those for you in about 20 minutes or so. But sorry about that. Totally my mistake. You guys, if you guys couldn't hear the clips, I'm glad that you can hear me now on the microphone. If you can't, let me know. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Please do like and share the video. We do a lot of work around here to try to bring you content, exclusive content like what I'm going to bring you right now. There was an ex-con in Chicago who, he was wearing a peacekeeper jacket, or like vest. This is the guy here. I'm sure you can see him in the live stream. That's him. He's 31 years old, and I've got the story here from the New York Post. They're breaking this. An ex-con was wearing a peacekeeper's vest. Now, what you need to know about the peacekeepers, it's through the Illinois Department of Human Services. They basically got a ragtag group of people of about 30 from the neighborhood, and they trained them in conflict resolution. Don't know exactly how that's going to help people in the city of Chicago when they're being beaten and robbed. But this guy, he was wearing a peacekeeper's vest. So I don't know. It's unclear at this point whether or not he was a peacekeeper. Maybe he was off duty. I don't know. From being a peacekeeper, or maybe he beat a peacekeeper and took the vest and was wearing it, and maybe that's what happened. But either way, he's an ex-con and he's wearing the vest, and he took part in this vicious beating and robbery of a Chicago motorist over Memorial Day weekend. It was a bloody Memorial Day weekend. Over 50 people were shot. I think 9 is the total, fatally. 9 people died over the Memorial Day weekend. And I want to bring this up because this is really interesting, how there's reports coming out of Florida. And it is tragic, okay? There is this story coming out of Florida at this beach. Really heartbreaking. We've got Memorial Day weekend where it's 11 miles south of Fort Lauderdale, 20 miles north of Miami, and it was a packed beach, and there were a lot of people shot. I'm trying to look for a number. It was all injuries. Nobody died. Investigators are asking for the public's help in finding the suspect, who's described to be a black male with dreadlocks. And he was seeing a black short-sleeve shirt and some camouflage shorts. Now, this is no deaths have been reported. And I find this interesting because there were far less people shot. I think it was 9 people shot overall, and this seems to be catching national headlines. And nobody's talking about what's going on in Chicago. And I think the reason why, 9 people were shot. Nobody died. Tragic. Look, this is tragic. Crowds were fleeing on the beach. This is making national news. Although nobody died, people died. 9 people died in Chicago over the weekend. And there were over 50 people shot, but nobody's reporting on that. Why? Because Governor J.B. Pritzker is a Democrat, and he is immune from scrutiny in the news. And immune from national news and making national headlines. And the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson, is also a Democrat, a far-left Democrat. And he's immune from having backlash in the news or having some sort of scrutiny or being looked at under a magnifying glass. Now, I do want to shift gears here and talk a little bit about Sam Brinton. I want to get to this story today. I haven't gotten to it yet. Sam Brinton, he, this is sad. And I highly recommend, I'm not going to play it here. It's highly offensive. It's a video of the drag nun group that Sam Brinton is now a part, or has ties to. So Sam Brinton is awaiting trial right now. He's serving time in a men's prison, and he was fired from being Joe Biden's official in the nuclear waste program because he was stealing luggage. And his thefts went public, and he's facing grand larceny, these charges, and he allegedly stole women's luggage from airports in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Las Vegas. So Sam Brinton, he's fired from his job as a Biden official, and he is now awaiting trial. But get this, they've done some digging here, the Post-Millennial. They've found out that he was a principal officer of the D.C. chapter, and Fox News actually uncovered some tax filing information. So he had a role in founding this group. It's a drag nun group, and they've advertised to this group, the LA Dodgers, very heavily for their Pride Night that's supposed to be taking place on June 16th. Now, they said they were going to cancel it due to Catholic backlash, but then they reinstated the night after the backlash from the LGBTQ people, because apparently that's more convincing than that of the Catholic people who they literally blasphemed. It was disgusting. This nun group, they dress up in drag. You should see some of the videos they have out there. They shake whatever they've got in front of a cross. It's very disturbing. But it turns out Sam Brinton is actually more than just a part of it. He led it and founded it. And this is of great concern. Well, I mean, I guess I could have called it. Here we go. Sam Brinton. You guys know who this guy is, right? He's the Biden official. He worked in the nuclear waste program for Joe Biden, and he was fired because he is now awaiting trial for grand larceny. He was stealing ladies' luggages. He was arrested. He was made famous for this because he was stealing ladies' luggages from the airports of both Los Angeles, I think it's Los Angeles and Minneapolis, St. Paul, or Las Vegas, Minneapolis, St. Paul. So he was stealing women's luggages, and he awaits trial. He is going to be serving time in a men's jail, and he was fired after the news broke that he was a part of these luggage thefts, and after these luggage thefts actually were made public, and now he's got charges of grand larceny. You guys know who Sam Brinton is, and he identifies as non-binary, real ugly dude. And that's the thing. These real ugly, weak men have these fetishes of looking like women. And this is disturbing because now he's making headlines. This just in. Turns out he is more than just a member of this nun group. So it's a nun drag group. And the LA Dodgers, there's a big controversy here because they advertised, the LA Dodgers baseball team, they advertised a very special Pride Night that's going to be happening June 16th to feature this group. I'm just calling them the drag nuns, I guess. And they faced a lot of backlash from the Catholic community, and they canceled the night, actually, the Pride Night. And then they reinstated it after the LGBTQ, IB, A, B, C, D, E, F, G people were really upset about it. And apparently their backlash was more convincing than that of the Catholics, whose religion they literally blasphemed by allowing these nuns, these drag nuns, to perform. These nuns, and I've watched videos, and I wish I could take it back. I really wish I wouldn't have rested my eyes on this video. It's disturbing, and I highly recommend you don't go watch it with children around. If you want to watch it, it's on you. I am just going to say this: I didn't want to watch it, or now that I've watched it, I wish that I could go back in time and unwatch it. You know what I mean, and not watch it. So Sam Brinton wasn't just a member of this DC chapter. This is what they call themselves, this drag group that dresses up in religious clothes. So they dress up in like priest stuff and like religious garb. And they pose very salaciously with crosses, like a cross that was, that Jesus Christ, he drug and was crucified on. Very symbolic, a very sacred symbol in the Christian faith, just in general. And they pose very salaciously with these crosses. They shake their butts on the cross. They use the cross as a strip pole. And they try to do they do this in order to get their message across of inclusion or something. I guess, right? This is just so sad. And this is the group that is like they've advertised and promoted the LA Dodgers. This is part of a big controversy, and people are boycotting the LA Dodgers games. They're not going to the games anymore. I've heard of people who have just stopped watching the MLB because of this kind of stuff. So he wasn't just a member, Sam Brinton, of this group, of these drag queens. He was a principal officer of the DC chapter, and Fox News has discovered a tax filing. And he was instrumental in the founding of this group in 2016 and in 2018. And Sam Brinton's drag name was Sister Radioactive. Radioactive. Oh, I get it. Radioactive. Okay. I get it. So that's his drag name. And like I said, this is a very disturbing thing. He's racked up multiple felonies. He's made headlines, Sam Brinton. And it doesn't shock me that he had more than a part in creating this drag queen group out of Washington, D.C. that literally blasphemies the Catholic religion and Christianity just in general. Okay, do want to shift gears here. Talked about that. Now I do want to talk about the New York Times and them publishing this article. I can't believe it. I think they said the quiet part out loud here, folks. The New York Times is saying, and this guy, his name is Wesley Morris, he's big mad. He's very upset that the Little Mermaid live action, Disney's live action remake, didn't go far enough and there was no kink. He's upset that there's no kink in this children's movie. So like I said earlier, the Disney live action remakes, the purpose to make these, it should be the nostalgia factor. And the virtue signaling to put a black actress in there, her name is Haley Bailey. I think she's very talented. I think that she has a great voice. And it's not really so much that she's a black actress that bothers me. It's the virtue signaling, and it's the missing the point of what these live action movies are supposed to be about. When I say The Little Mermaid, we all think of the white mermaid who has bright red hair, right? That's very easy to cast. But they decided to cast a black actress, which is fine, whatever. The virtue signaling, they're not getting the point of the nostalgia. When you go in to see one of these Disney live action remakes with your child, the whole point is to feel some sort of nostalgia. That's the point of remaking a movie, right? But what I want to bring you today is this article put out there by the New York Times, and Wesley says this. He says, The Disney live-action remake of The Little Mermaid with Hailey Bailey starring as Ariel and a diverse cast, quote, reeks of obligation and noble intentions, writes this New York Times article, written by a movie critic named Wesley Morris. And he says, joy, fun, mystery, risk, flavor, and kink are all missing from the film. So he goes on. He says that the Disney movie missed the mark because the producers were too busy focusing on the approval from the audience after making the bold decision to cast a black actress as Ariel. As a result, Wesley said that the children's movie, the movie designed for children to watch with their parents and to experience the Disney nostalgia, he said that it lacked kink and flavor and risk. Wow. So the movie hit the theaters on Friday, and it's been at the height of the culture war in America right now since the Disney decided to do the race swap of the main character and revealed that Hailey Bailey was going to be the black actress and singer casted as Ariel. It's a very big difference, obviously, from the main character who's white and redheaded, and she's a mermaid. That doesn't bother me so much as to the virtue signaling, and they're missing the point with remaking these films. Why does the New York Times want more kink in a Disney movie? Just answer that. If you're watching on the Facebook Live, I've got that question here for you. I'm going to throw it in the comments, and I'll read your answers if you text it in at 309-451-9299. I honestly want to know, why does the New York Times want more kink in a Disney movie? There's hundreds of people who have expressed their distaste for this article, for this movie review, and the New York Times has not published a statement apologizing. They haven't talked about the matter at all on their website, so wanted to bring that up. I do have to take a break. When we come back, I want to dig into NBC News and how they're upset that conservatives are celebrating, and they're celebrating the boycott of Bud Light and the backing of Bud Light and others like Target into a corner here. I'm celebrating. They're not exactly wrong on that. They're not necessarily wrong on this one, folks, because I am celebrating. Over the weekend, I saw there was a sticker on a Bud Light 24-pack for 99 cents. You had to do something on their website or whatever to get the pack of 24-pack of Bud Light for 99 cents. But I was like in the grocery store, and I think I threw my fist up in the air and I said, yeah, take that, Bud Light. That'll show you to try to celebrate Dylan Mulvaney's deranged 365 days of girlhood. But now we're watching Target take a hit, and NBC, they've got a hilarious take here because they've really tried to manipulate the numbers on this one. I've got the story here next on the Morning Buzz. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Like I said, why do you think the New York Times they want more kink in the Disney movie? Why do you think that is? And I hate to say it, I guess I'm being conspiratorial here. Is it a push by the mainstream media? Is there a push by these leftists to sexualize children and to groom them at a national level? I mean, this is a movie. This is a Disney movie. Is there a push to try to sexualize children or to blur the lines of what is acceptable as far as sex goes for children watching this film? Yeah. So why does the New York Times want more kink in a Disney film? Okay, do want to talk about this ex-con a little bit more in Chicago because this is really interesting. His name is Oscar Montez. He's 31 years old, and he was wearing this special yellow neon vest, which was worn by city-appointed group called Peacekeepers. Now, these Peacekeepers, they were selected, I guess, by the Illinois Department of Human Services, and they were trained on conflict resolution. That just goes to show you, and how poorly, I mean, the amount of people who were shot over the weekend in Chicago, 50 plus people, and then 9 fatally in Chicago at the start of the Memorial Day weekend on Friday. There were 44 people shot on Friday. So, 9 people fatally shot since the Chicago's. Yeah, so I got the numbers here. A lot of people dying. A lot of people hurt, injured with guns. And it's not the guns; it's the people who are wielding the guns, folks. But the cops say that this guy, Oscar Montez, was part of a mob of nearly 10 people who yanked a driver out of his car before battering and robbing him. When police arrived, Montez was allegedly trying to pull off his telltale garment. So when the police came with this yellow, he's got yellow vest on. The police came and he tried to take his vest off. Now, this is the vest that peacekeepers were supposed to be wearing. Cops said Montez snatched the victim's cell phone, beat him, and they saw that he took his wallet. The victim sustained serious injuries to his eyes, along with fractures, cuts, and bruises. Police told the Chicago Sun-Times that the injured man suffered potentially irreversible vision loss. This is heartbreaking. Now, Oscar Montez, the guy who was wearing this vest for the peacekeepers, was released from prison earlier this month after serving a 10-year prison term for shooting at a rival gang member. Lock these people up, put them away, and don't let them come back out, okay? Now, he was held without bail Sunday on charges of aggravated robbery, battery, vehicle invasion in this Friday beating. Now, look, these peacekeepers, this initiative, the city and state leaders have heralded their peacekeeper initiative, asserting that it's roughly 500 violence prevention workers will help de-escalate the rampant violence in the city of Chicago. Officials dedicated $11 million to fund this campaign. I'm sorry. I'm upset. I'm very upset. I'm angry. You've donated $11 million, or you've dedicated $11 million of my money to people wearing yellow vests and trying to sit down gangbangers, offering $100 daily stipend to former gang members to help. Oh my gosh, this is so much worse than what I thought it was. Offering $100 daily stipends to former gang members to help prevent mayhem that plagues Chicago during the 3-day weekend. Are you kidding me? This is not real. I'm just reading this now. I'm sorry. I didn't do a whole lot of research on the peacekeepers and what exactly they were. I didn't know that they were sending out money, $100 a day, daily stipends to former gang members to help stop the mayhem in Chicago. Wow, this is wild. No way. No way. Wait a second. This can't be real. This can't be real. Oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. I'm going to bring this on air. This is wild. Wow. I'm just speechless. Okay. We're literally paying gang members to beat people in Chicago. Yes. Here we go. Becky. Becky, she says here, City's 92.9. She's replying. The satanic agenda gets promoted when they put the satanic curses to song, and we have kids keep repeating it over and over and over. If it lacks kink as well, they are failing their own mission. Yeah, it's all about getting it into the songs, getting it repeated, the satanic mission of perverting our children. Becky, I like that answer. It's about the songs. I actually have to look into The Little Mermaid, the song. There was one song that I think was kind of like sexualized, but I've got to listen back to it. I'll be back here on the Morning Buzz. Hold on one sec. All right, so I didn't realize it was this bad, folks, and that's on me as a Morning Buzz contributor here, as a on-air host. I should have done more due diligence this morning on what these peacekeepers were, and this is just kind of how the show goes. I wake up, I read the headlines, I bring you the headlines. And throughout the show, I try to stay up on the breaking news, try to understand the stories that I'm presenting to you in more depth as the news day goes on, because early in the morning you just kind of get the headlines, and then you got to wait for more to be leaked out and more stuff to gain traction in the news to understand how the news day is going to go. And this morning I got the breaking news: the chaos on Hollywood, Florida beach. 9 people were shot. The crowds were fleeing from this gunman. I don't even know if they've caught the guy. They were at the time looking for a guy. He's black, dreadlocks. He's a man, and he was last seen wearing black short sleeve with camouflage shorts. The police were asking for the public's assistance in trying to locate this guy. Now, he was at Hollywood Beach in Florida, and he was shooting people. 9 people were injured. Nobody died. A tragic story, really. It is tragic, and it was chaotic Memorial Day scene at the beach in Florida. However, no national news this morning, no national headlines for Chicago, because they're Democrats running it, and their little peacekeeper campaign failed epically. Epic fail. We've got Governor Jellybean and Brandon Johnson. They have blood on their hands. This is disgusting. I can't believe it's this bad, but it is. So we have city and state officials, leaders. They've heralded this new peacekeeper initiative. And I didn't do a whole lot of research on what this peacekeeper initiative really was all about. So they're saying that it's roughly 500 violence prevention workers, and they were hired and trained in conflict resolution and de-escalation to try to help with the rampant violence that's been going on in Chicago. Now, they've dedicated $11 million to fund this campaign. And this is the part that gets me. They've offered $100 daily, these stipends. It's $100 daily to former gang members to help stop, restrict the mayhem that plagues Chicago during this 3-day weekend. So they were paying gang members, former gang members, to try to help stop the violence in Chicago. So when stories like this happen with Oscar, and I'm going to get to the story, I'm not shocked. So were they paying? Was I paying? Because this is $11 million of your money, my money, being here in the state of Illinois. This is a state and citywide initiative. State officials, the Illinois Department of Human Services, they were backing this program where they had these peacekeepers out there in Chicago trying to do some sort of conflict resolution, going up to gangbangers. We had peacekeepers who were actually gangbangers themselves getting paid to be out there. So we've got an ex-con. Here's the story. He's wearing a peacekeeper vest, and he took part in a vicious beating and robbery of a Chicago motorist over Memorial Day weekend. His name is Oscar Montez. He's 31, and he was wearing this special yellow neon vest. It's not yet known if he was paid that $100 daily stipend. Now, he is a former gang member, so it wouldn't shock me if he was getting paid to be out there to wear that vest. But he was wearing this city-appointed group of peacekeeper vest. And like I said, the peacekeepers, they were meant to try to suppress the violence that has been going on historically there on Memorial Day weekend. Like I said, over 50 people shot on Memorial Day weekend. I think it was about 9 people who were fatally shot, died. Cops say that this guy, Oscar Montez, was part of a mob of about 10 people, and they yanked this driver out of the car, battered him, robbed him, gave him facial fractures, severely injured his eye. The police told the Chicago Sun-Times that the man has now, it's probably so where he is going to face irreversible vision loss. This is sad. And get this, Montez, he was released from prison earlier this month after serving 10 years for shooting at a rival gang member. So he shot at a rival gang member. He was serving prison time. Lock these people up, throw away the key. These people should not be with society, the rest of society. He is now being held without bail. Aggravated battery, robbery, vehicle invasion in this last beating, Friday's beating. But like I said, folks, your money is being dedicated to this campaign of so-called peacekeepers who are trained in conflict resolution. And I guess that as a part of this campaign, they're offering $100 daily stipends to former gang members to try to help restrict and stop the mayhem that plagues Chicago. I'm reading this from the New York Post. You can read the whole story. Wow. It doesn't get much worse than that, folks. You're paying for former gang members to get out there and to play cutesy time or to actually reoffend in the city of Chicago when they're supposed to be keeping the peace. I can't even wrap my head around this. This is wild. I'll be back on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Join me on the Facebook live stream. Just text in at 309-451-9299 if you want to be a part of the show. I like this comment. Once again, another demon rat or Democrat. Sorry, I messed that up. Once again, another Democrat idea in the toilet. Peacekeepers beating and robbing people. What a joke. Yeah, absolutely love this, Mark. Great comment. I'm sorry I messed up. I thought you said demon rat. I call them demon rats, but Democrat is really good too. Just another bad idea. I can't believe this. And just got off the phone with a good friend. His name's Larry, and he was like, at this point, the Chicago motorist who got beaten so badly to where he's going to have permanent vision, irreversible vision loss. He got beat that bad by this former gang member who possibly was getting paid the $100 stipend from the government. I mean, what's the difference between, what's his name? Oscar Montez, the guy who beat this guy, and a cop beating George Floyd? Can the family now sue the city of Chicago for having these gang members out there being paid by the government with your taxpayer money to get out there and beat people? It doesn't get crazier than that, folks. I'm sorry. If you're not awake, you need to wake. up. Wake up. I'll be back here. We are going to be talking about NBC. Let's talk about NBC when we come back. NBC, they didn't get this wrong. Conservative activists, me, you, we have taken some joy in seeing Bud Light completely their stock is cratering by billions of dollars every week. I think we're going on week 8 or something like that of the boycott. And now we're seeing Target take a hit. We're going to probably see Kohl's take a hit. All I've got to say is keep the pressure on. They hate you. They hate your kids. Don't buy these products until they stop with the propaganda, with the crap, with the shoving this down your throat and shoving it down the kids' throat. These pride themes apparels that are being sold in the department stores. Now, there's an NBC report out there, and I want to point this out. They cite this number in the report, the NBC article, and I'm going to bring it to you. They're trying to say that LGBT people in the United States has a lot of purchasing power, essentially by citing this one stat from this 2019 report, and they're 7% of the population. What do you mean, LGBT people having purchasing power? They're 7% of the population. They don't have purchasing power. It's a minority. There's no way. Hey, good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. I hope y'all had a great Memorial Day. I had a fantastic Memorial Day. I got to spend some time out at Kickapoo Creek, which was a beautiful state park. I mean, one of the best probably in the state of Illinois. I really like it out there. Got to spend some time with the dog, with the family. We were eating some burgers, some hot dogs, and said some grace around the table and, thanked the servicemen and women who laid down their life for us, paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. Jesus Christ, he laid down his life for our soul. Men and women who serve the United States, we as Americans, they laid down their lives so that way we could have our political freedoms, our freedoms here that we enjoy here in America. So thank you to those who serve and sign their name on the dotted line. Do want to talk about, real quick, Target, Bud Light, NBC. They've got this article out there, and they're doing some reporting on the boycotts against Bud Light, Target, Kohl's possibly now is the latest retail company to find itself in a hot seat after outraged shoppers discovered LGBTQ3-themed apparel being sold at this department store for babies. So you can now dress your infant, 3 to 9 months old, in a onesie that features rainbows, rainbow stripes, and words like Happy Pride. You can even buy a variety pack of 5 baby pride-themed onesies. How incredible. So there's a report out there, and I want to point this number out. It's important. They cherry-picked this number from a report. It's a 2019 report from the LGBT Capital, which is a financial services company. And I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say they're probably not all that unbiased, being that LGBT is in their name. So LGBTQ people in the United States, this is what the report says, represents roughly $900 billion in annual purchasing power. So what NBC is trying to do here with this article, they're trying to say that you're a big, bad bigot because you're boycotting Bud Light and Target. And that these major companies just saw, a clear capitalist incentive, that they were just putting these products out there because LGBT people have a lot of purchasing power. They cherry-picked this report from this financial services company, and anybody with any kind of logic, understanding, knows that the LGBTQ community only makes up 7%. It's increased, yes. It only makes up 7% of the United States population. That's it. U.S. adults who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, only 7% of the U.S. population. You mean to tell me that people who will make up 7% of the population have all of the purchasing power in the United States? You're lying and you're misleading people. That is not why the major companies are putting the Pride themed stuff out on their shelves. The reason why they're doing that is to boost their ESG scores. Their ESG scores help their stock price. Okay, that's why they're doing this. It gives them brownie points with the government, and they get rewarded via their stock price when they put out all of the crazy. This is why North Face has done this. They had like a 13-point ESG score. 100 is really good. 50 is kind of the goal is 100 ESG points. It's real simple when you break it down. It's the ESG scores. That's why they're doing this, because the government rewards you for putting out this propaganda and for targeting children as young as 3 months old and trying to sexualize them by putting them in a gay pride onesie. Because at the end of the day, LGBT, it's not a cool hat. It's not a characteristics. It is being gay. So it is sexual in nature. That's what LGBT is. It is sexualizing kids. And I just say keep it up. Keep up the boycotts. They're scared. Keep the pressure on. They hate you. They hate your kids. And don't stop boycotting until they stop their nonsense. All right, that's going to do it for us here on the Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate you tuning in. If you liked the show, go back to YouTube, like the show, and share it out with your friends. They need to know this stuff. They need to wake up. Bye-bye. I love you.